With the introduction of characters like Tony Soprano and Walter White into the cultural zeitgeist, the idea of the anti-hero as the preferred protagonist has taken precedence over traditional depictions of heroes as lead characters. Perhaps it's the way that those visions of idealism, courage, and morality become skewered through the lens of the characters we are supposed to connect with, humanize them for us, which in turn makes them more alluring than the saints and seemingly all-knowing beacons of purity that used to populate narratives by default. In terms of cinema, anti-heroes aren't necessarily a brand new idea. Though Charles Foster Kane is where most film historians indicate the breakthrough of the anti-hero, I'd argue that the iconic James Dean depiction of Jim Stark in Rebel Without a Cause could mark the introduction of the anti-hero on a large scale, in spite of the film's relatively small scope of focus. While Stark wasn't necessarily saving the world in his story, Rebel Without a Cause made the bold step of trying to paint the generation gap that led to the disillusionment of the 1960s in a realistic light, making James Dean an instant posthumous icon while also opening the door for audiences to embrace a protagonist with clear and present faults. By the 1970s, the anti-hero idea was starting to establish a firm hold with characters like Travis Bickle, Alex DeLarge, Paul Kersey, Han Solo, Tony Montana, the man with no name, and so many more becoming the norm rather than the alternative. Whether it be life imitating art or vice versa, as violent crime and drug addiction statistics rose through the 1980s, 90s, and 2000s, so did the presence of the anti-hero, to the point where your only true depictions of pure heroism come in the form of canonized superheroes like Captain America or Superman, though ironically, both of these characters have also gone through the anti-hero ringer in their most current iterations. I say all that to say this. While recently watching James Gunn's brilliant take on the Suicide Squad, I found myself ruminating on the idea of the anti-hero in a narrative absent of a traditional hero story structure. By definition, an anti-hero must be a protagonist, and with DC's Suicide Squad property being fueled by the presence of villains, prison complexes' absence of reform, and corrupt governments and government officials, there are no traditional heroes to be found. While both takes on the Suicide Squad lore attempted to explore the humanitarian aspects via father-daughter stories, neither David Ayer's take on Deadshot nor Gunn's take on Bloodsport delve deep enough into those respective father-daughter dynamics to undercut the edge that drives each character. Gunn, however, found a way to explore the base human aspects of the bad guy in a new way, and he did it chiefly through one key character, the brilliantly depicted Ratcatcher 2. Breakout star Daniela Melchior had such an interesting take on her villainous persona that it got me thinking about a new type of character archetype, the anti-villain. What exactly constitutes an anti-villain, one might ask? This is a legitimate question, and with it potentially existing as the antithesis of the anti-hero, perhaps it's best to examine what makes an anti-villain by inversing the aspects of the anti-hero definition. By that rationale, if the anti-hero is a protagonist or notable figure who is conspicuously lacking in heroic qualities such as idealism, courage, and morality, then the anti-villain is an antagonist who happens to possess these qualities. If we look at the core members of Task Force X that we follow in the Suicide Squad, there are several candidates we can immediately eliminate for anti-villain contention. Let's take Peacemaker, for example. While his courage cannot be questioned, his idealism and morality do not exceed the reach of whatever orders his superiors issue him. Bloodsport also excels in the courage department, and he does express idealism in the form of a personal assassin's code, but his lack of morality is the key element to not only his success, but his survival. Harley Quinn is more insane than she is courageous. Her need for validation replaces any hope for idealism, and much like Bloodsport, her disconnection from morality makes her a formidable warrior. Polka Dot Man lacks the courage to be an anti-villain candidate, let alone the idealism or the morality. King Shark is so strong and seemingly hard to inflict damage on that courage is a non-issue. But his pure innocence means he lacks the ability to develop a strong set of ideals or morals, only an ability to act upon base instincts. Colonel Rick Flag comes the closest outside of Ratcatcher to an anti-villain candidate, as he clearly shows signs of idealism, courage, and morality, but his status as a hired mercenary and not an inmate appointed to the Suicide Squad makes him the film's proper protagonist, meaning he is supposed to possess these qualities. That leaves us with Ratcatcher 2, the youngest member of our primary Task Force X squad and the lone woman of the group. From the moment she is awoken by Amanda Waller and introduced to the members of her squad, it is clear that her energy differs from that of the other inmates at Waller's disposal, even down to the fact that she is apparently the sole inmate on the tier sleeping, while the remainder in the day room. She is the least flashiest of the Task Force X members once the orange jumpsuits are shed, choosing to adorn a dark jacket, dark clothes, a mask, gloves, and boots rather than a tech-heavy suit, a suit with symbols on it, or some sort of genetically altered physical appearance. She doesn't carry a weapon, inflict damage with her hands or feet, or expel objects from her person, opting instead to use a mixture of science and fear as a means to an end by controlling rats with a device developed by her father, the original Ratcatcher. One of the first truly revealing moments we get from Ratcatcher 2 involves her strengthening the bond between King Shark and the remaining members of her team via the magic of friendship. Like some sort of twisted intervention, King Shark finds himself being judged by Peacemaker and Bloodsport in the wake of his attempt to eat Ratcatcher 2. But like a seasoned mediator, Ratcatcher 2 diffuses the situation by simultaneously educating King Shark on what true friendship is, while also easing Peacemaker and Bloodsport's concerns on the possibility of King Shark eating them.
If I die because I gambled on love, it will be a worthy death.
I believe that had she been absent from the team and King Shark attempted to eat Polka Dot Man instead, for example, the entire situation would have devolved into a machismo-fueled hell of bullets, bludgeoning and biting. As the film continues, Ratcatcher 2 is time and again the member of the team that asks piercing questions that almost seem to psychoanalyze her team members on the spot.
You're supposed to be decisive.
And I've decided that you should eat a big bag of dicks.
If this whole beach was completely covered in dicks, and somebody said I'd eat every dick until the beach was clean for liberty, I would say no problemo.
Why would someone put penises all over the beach?
Who knows why madmen do what they do?
I cherish peace with all my heart. I don't care how many men, women, and children I need to kill to get it.
I thought you were the crazy one.
I am.
Her immediate honing in on Bloodsport's issues with his ability to be a father also end up not only giving Bloodsport the understanding needed to allow redemption, but it briefly validated her need for fatherly affection, even if she is well adjusted and comfortable about the place of her deceased father and where he stands in her eyes. All of these examples not only demonstrate the infectious spirit that makes her my favorite member of Task Force X, but they show her fully rounded humanitarian idealism, not to mention her capacity for growth and understanding. Now, when it comes to courage, it doesn't take a genius to uncover Ratcatcher's 2 immediate symbol of it, and that's her seemingly non-existent fear of rats. Most characters in the film shudder at the sight of the rats, and all keep their distance even if they silently protest. But Ratcatcher goes so far as to befriend one of the rats, naming it Sebastian and giving it a home right by her side. Outside of the obvious, Ratcatcher 2 shows her courage and ability to keep her composure at every turn, be it the way she asserts herself against King Shark prior to befriending him, the way she stands up to Peacemaker after having just witnessed him murdering Colonel Rick Flag, or her heroic efforts in the face of certain destruction and death at the hands of Starro the Conqueror. She is not afraid to stand up and speak on the behalf of her father when even the smallest slight is sent his way. Even when she has the unfortunate experience of seeing all the victims that they think are held captive for experimentation with Starro the Conqueror, not to mention a face-to-face encounter with Starro himself, her fight instinct kicks in rather than her flight instinct, and is driven by her need to rescue the victims and reveal the truth.
I'm gonna get you out of here alive.
I'm going to get you out of here alive.
While Bloodsport is the first to defy Waller and choose to face Starro, it's the courage of Ratcatcher 2 to follow that not only turns Polka Dot Man and King Shark, but embolden Waller's lackeys to overthrow her command in the name of correcting the issue they all caused. It is this unchecked forward momentum and lack of fear in the face of any obstacle, all heavily shaped by her experiences as a young child with her father, that demonstrates courage that is not only easily communicable, but wholly understandable as well. When King Shark attempts to eat her, she gives him the benefit of the doubt by saying he has very kind eyes. Upon King Shark's admission that he did try to eat her, Ratcatcher 2 is immediately angered and calls him a bastard while summoning an army of rats, but she has them yield prior to attacking King Shark, meaning that she is not willing to exceed the bar of wrongdoing set by the actions of her tormentor, even if their intentions were more sinister than their actions. When Polka Dot Man collapses trying to keep up with his tougher counterparts and the Freedom Fighters, it's Ratcatcher 2 who stands up for him without even being asked, by reminding everyone that non-soldiers and non-genetically altered humanoids do get tired. Her continual observations on Sebastian's attempts to befriend Bloodsport are really masked attempts to help Bloodsport discover his empathy and good nature. Even the cause of her sentencing, a rat-assisted bank robbery leading to a set of robbery and assault with a deadly weapon charges, was done out of the need for her survival rather than a superficial want or desire. The humanist empathy that drives her morality can be summed up in her touching ode to the rats that Ratcatcher 1 taught her. Rats are the lowliest and most despised of all creatures. If they have goodness, so do we all. It should come as no surprise that I not only love James Gunn's take on the Suicide Squad as a whole, but specifically found myself moved by the Daniela Melchior performance of Ratcatcher 2. She had a few film and television roles already under her belt, mostly all with ties to her native Portugal, but I will be very surprised if the Suicide Squad doesn't mark a starting point for Melchior on the road to a much wider stardom and higher worldwide profile. Comic book films normally don't get love during awards season outside of portrayals of the Joker, so I don't expect Melchior to be nominated for anything outside of a Teen Choice or MTV award. But if for some odd stroke of luck she does find herself on the short list of nominations for supporting actress nods at the least, I would not be surprised. Her approach was a heartwarming and engaging one, and it gave me enough to chew on in terms of performance and character art that it made me consider whether or not the anti-villain could be a viable character archetype moving forward. I'm sure that Ratcatcher 2 can't be the only example of this anti-villain concept in film culture. Can you think of any characters from other films that fit this mold as well? What are your thoughts on examining Ratcatcher 2 through this lens? What did you think of the Suicide Squad as a film, be it one made in the shadow of its predecessor or on its own merit? Be sure to leave your thoughts, ideas, suggestions, and constructive criticism in the comments. And while you're at it, feel free to leave a like and subscribe to Doom on Film. You can catch my chronicled thoughts, analysis, and reviews on film at doomonfilm.tumblr.com. For links to everything else I do in the creative spectrum, please visit chiefandthedoomsdaydevice.com. Until next time, keep that love for the movies going. This is Chief Doomsday, representing Doom on Film, signing out.